push the button.
Okay.
Woo!
I pushed it.
Yay!
Are we on?
Not yet. Not from what I can tell.
It says we're live.
All right. It says we're live. Oh my goodness. Technology is so hard. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our live stream of Clank Legacy. We are so glad to have you here.
Can everyone
this
see us?
I think everybody can see us. We're streaming. We got a couple people in the chat. And I honestly am impressed we have a couple of people. I kind of thought nobody would show up because we're going to have spoilers on a game that everybody hasn't had a chance to play yet. But we figured both Mandi and myself have had a chance to play the full campaign of Clank Legacy separately, though. So we've had our own experiences. And as we discussed, it's really hard to review legacy games without spoilers. So let's just get rid of that old barrier and talk freely about Clank Legacy, because we assume that there are people out there that might just be curious, that don't care about spoilers. I, quite frankly, don't usually care about spoilers. They don't bother me. Or there are actually people, too, that might not ever feel like they get the chance to play Clank Legacy and would just like to know more about the game. So here we are. My name is Suzanne Sheldon.
And my name is Mandi Hutchinson.
And if you're unfamiliar with us, we are the co-hosts, with two of the co-hosts of the Dice Tower podcast, and we also do streaming shows here once in a while. And thank you so much for joining us. So we are going to talk freely about our experiences with Clank Legacy, but we aren't going to intentionally tell you every story beat or everything that happens in the game. First of all, that would be a very, very long stream.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it's not our intent to ruin surprises or anything like that, but we want to give you a feel for the game and be able to talk freely. Certainly, we're going to keep an eye on the YouTube chat. If you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them openly for you there. And we'll just see how this goes. I haven't done something like this before because, quite frankly, I don't get to play a lot of legacy games, but I'm pretty excited about this.
Yes, me too. Yay.
All right, Mandi. First up.
Yes.
What did you enjoy Clank Legacy?
I did. And I actually think my group enjoyed it even more than I did. So it was one of those things where people in my group were like, yeah, Clank, it was fine. It was okay. And I actually really like Clank. And then I had a couple people in my group who were like, this elevated Clank for me. This made me go, ooh, I want to play more. And we want to continue playing this one versus the original because we like the changes that have been made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you?
And
you liked it.
Our group felt the same way. We liked Clank, played a fair amount of it, but this just took it to the next level. And certainly Clank itself has a certain lightness to the theme. It's you're going and you're stealing treasure from this dragon and you're making noise and then the dragon attacks. But by putting the Acquisitions Incorporated setting and theme on it, it really notched it up in terms of narrative and humor and art, which was just awesome. For those of you who are unfamiliar, as kind of I am, to be honest, Acquisitions Incorporated is the D&D campaign that some of the Penny Arcade team, the famous Penny Arcade webcomic, and of course PAX now, the Penny Arcade Expo conventions and all that good stuff. They do this live D&D show, and it's taken on a life of its own, and it's hilarious, and all of that's worked into this. And quite frankly, I haven't had the opportunity to really follow along with Acquisitions Incorporated, and I laughed so much during this game. So I think if you are familiar with Acquisitions Incorporated, this will extra spark for you because you'll get all the in-jokes.
Right.
As somebody who isn't super familiar with it, I still loved it. I still got the humor. I still thought that was great too.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Exactly.
Yeah, without a doubt, Clank Legacy, fabulous. One of the best gaming experiences I ever had in my life. It is at least 10 games. Mm-hmm. And certainly, Mandi, I think first off, one of the things with Clank Legacy games is with things like Pandemic Legacy or some of the other legacy games out there, you're looking at maybe 45 to 60 minutes a game.
Give or take.
Is what I understand.
There were a couple, though, that I felt like that kind of stretched a little bit, and maybe just because of the paths we decided to take. But yeah, on average, we were able to pull out maybe 3 games a night.
And for sure, with Clank Legacy, I found that the games ran a little bit longer, and the deeper we got into the game, the longer they went.
Right.
So I was definitely running 90 minutes to 120 minutes on average per game. I didn't care because it was a lot of fun. But quite frankly, we also felt that some of that was just because you are doing a lot of stuff in between turns. The turns themselves are pretty smooth.
Absolutely.
But you were taking a lot of breaks to change things in the game for that legacy impact, which on one hand is awesome. There's so much legacy stuff you're doing. There's stickering. You are tearing up a ton. You better get used to card destruction.
Can I tell you, we didn't tear
destroy a lot.
Oh no, we didn't. So I have a little baggie with all the pieces. It wasn't me.
What?
So this is a shout out to Stefan when we were playing. He's like, let's just put it in a baggie. I'm like, I like that.
I disapprove. I disapprove. I feel like
Sorry.
I don't care for that. So yeah, one of the greatest things about Clank Legacy is that there's just a ton of stuff happening. When you get Clank Legacy, you're going to get this box, and you're going to get a board, and there's envelopes and things like that. I just want to show you the inside of the box a little bit, and of course this is done, but you can see there's those little miniatures, a miniature for the dragon and a miniature for the 4 characters that you could play. And then you see those little deck boxes up above. The colored ones are for players, and then the other 2 are other content. And that's what comes in the box, along with the board and this big old
Yes, I have my envelope, just
sticker envelope. Now, this is a completed game. I've done this. We did truly destroy things, but this thing still has stuff in it.
Let me see. Mine's pretty thick, actually.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's what it is too.
Stuff.
There's a lot of stuff in this game. So yeah, you're going to get this. You're going to get Clank Legacy. You're going to open it up, pick your characters. You get to name your characters.
Yes.
And you have to, you become employees or franchisees of Acquisitions Incorporated.
Let's see.
Mandy, do you have your character?
I do.
Here's my character box. I was the yellow player.
I'm afraid to show you my stars. Hold on.
Oh, yes. I have a lot of stars.
Were you yellow?
I was yellow.
I was also yellow.
All right. So I was the yellow player, and my name in the game, you get to name your character. I was Scattergilly Bunsplit.
I can't even believe that we use the same letter to start our characters. When I was younger, there was a character in a book that I loved. It was a fantasy themed book. So Satine is my name.
Very nice. And what you're going to see, and this isn't really a spoiler per se, you're going to have each box, and each character box is different in terms of what's on one side of them. And these are going to be personal goals for you to achieve throughout the campaign, through multiple games. You're going to try to complete these objectives, and they're different for each character, which is super duper cool. And then on the other side of the box, you're going to be keeping track of your check marks of grudging approval.
Won't look down here for mine. We'll just do that.
Mandy, look at all my check marks. I ran out of room in the track, Mandy. How did you do?
I had a very strong effort, so A for effort.
A for effort, indeed. And so there are going to be different things throughout the game that you will earn those check marks of grudging approval. And the nice thing about this is at the end of when you're playing or things like that, you just tuck all of your things back into the game, including, as Mandy's showing you right now, your own little personal cubes. And then you always have a starter deck. And one of the things in this game is, for the most part, your starter deck isn't changing much. Right. You're going to start with 10 basic cards. There's a few things that change it up, but basically every game you reset almost back to static, almost back to start. Your deck reset, which kind of surprised me at first.
Go on though, but yes, that was surprising. I thought that was a little different. I was expecting to change that up a little bit, but I didn't mind the continuity with that. But I had to show my character. I played the character that kind of looked like, is it Brienne of Tarth?
Oh, nice. I
had to do it. I'm like, I'm tall, powerful. So yeah, that was my character.
I played the wee person with daggers on a box. And just thematically, I like the idea of, like, when my character had to move someplace, they had to, like, grab their crate and hop I don't know.
Funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I didn't
But
mean to
yeah,
interrupt, but I had to show that too.
No. So you're going to reset your deck basically between games every time. There are some things that will impact your deck a little bit, but I thought that was interesting that you reset back. Right. Now, there is a very nice quality box called the Cardporium.
And I like this little, opening.
I still have cards in my Cardporium.
It's a little bit empty, though. A little empty.
And this is where you're going to be pulling cards throughout the game. As you hit different story points, they'll say pull cards. They're numbered on the edge, so you don't even have to look at the cards a lot to pull out, say pull out cards 150 through 153, and they'll tell you what to do with them. And I think that is a pretty good system overall. It was very efficient and things like that.
Did you designate a person? Like we had, so in our group, Tracy, hello Tracy, was the person who kind of oversaw, the Cardporium, and then kind of manned like the stickers and things like that. But we took turns reading. I don't know. I just found having one person kind of like set that up led to less messiness in the game. Yeah, for sure.
I was in charge of the Cardporium for the most part.
Right.
And then my friend Josh was in charge of the stickers for the most part.
Okay.
And then without a doubt, we passed this adventure book, this book of secrets.
Yes, for reading.
It's fairly thick.
Yes.
We would pass this around, and certainly if your character was the character that activated a story spot, you were the person that would read that story spot, and other than that, we just kind of traded that duty because it was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Everybody liked a chance to read, so I thought that was really cool.
So when you start like Clank Legacy, you're going to pick your character, your color, your miniature. You're going to set up the basic board, get all that laid out, punch out some tokens. There are extra tokens that come later. We'll talk about that. And then this is a board that, I'm going to show you my board. This has already been adjusted for our game. It does change as you go, but I'm going to show it to you right now.
Oh, you're showing the smaller board, right?
Yeah, the smaller board.
The market.
So this is your hub, so to speak. This is your health tracks. So again, if you're familiar with Clank, as the dragon attacks, they're going to pull out cubes of your color. As you've made noise, you've thrown cubes into the pool. When the dragon attacks, those go into the bag, and if they get pulled out, you take damage, and they go up the track. And as the dragon moves along this track, there are things that will advance the dragon, meaning you'll pull out more and more cubes, making the danger more and more scary as you go. Now these are all stickers, so these are all things that got added. Again,
yours. Yeah.
Exactly. There are. So that's one of the things. There are you only get 6 of these, but Mandy, there are probably 12 to pick from.
Because I'm looking at the board, we have some similarities, but a lot of them are actually very different.
Yeah, which is so darn cool.
Yeah.
Now, we named our headquarters. Our headquarters was named the Red Spit Tavern and Youth Hostel.
That's so specific. Well, we decided to go, I swear, I must have had fantasy in my mind, the Purple Unicorn Pub with a nice sunshiny thing on the side.
That's so on brand for you.
I know.
That's so on brand for you. So this is a little marketplace where there's items that you'll be able to buy.
Oh!
What? Oh!
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at your board. Like my little sticker
is different.
It's different.
Uh-huh.
And we've got a Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead. I'm just like mind blown right now. Okay, keep going. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. I mean, that's so cool that your game and my game different. It puts and in that context, that actually puts a lot of different pressure on that dragon track, depending on what you had there. We had something bad there, but we looked back through the stickers and realized there was something good there too that we could have. Anyway.
Okay.
So you're gonna pick your characters, name them all. You're gonna name your tavern, and then you're gonna start playing a game of Clank.
Yeah.
And as you go, you're gonna hit different points on the board that have they'll have numbers on them. And when you enter that space, you activate that story point. Just trying to figure out if I have any that we never touched.
I think we actually did all of them.
We made an effort to, right? Because that was fun.
Let me see. Oh, you know what? We do have one we didn't hit right here. Are you talking about these ones?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's not covered, so this is one that we didn't...
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We have one at the bottom here.
Yeah.
So I have
Is it on
one at
the
the
same
bottom
side?
here.
Yeah, because there are different sides on the board. So I don't know, sorry, if my numbers are showing backwards or not on the camera. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a good point. These Clank Legacy comes with a double-sided board. There's an overworld and an underworld. That's actually not a spoiler because as you see, you're going to have a sheet and it shows you the 10 games and it says which board side you're going to be playing that game. So game 1 through 3 is on the overworld and game 4 is on the underworld and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're going to open the board. You're going to play Clank. You're going to earn some cards. You're going to hit story points. You're going to be stickering the rulebook, stickering the board, stickering cards.
I can show you actually here on the back.
You're supposed to destroy cards, Mandi.
I like it as a little memento. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. And neither could my group. So they kind of were like, it's your game. You destroy it. No.
And Amanda Panda saying it doesn't feel like Legacy when you have to restart to basic. And I think that that's a good point. And it did take me by surprise. We got over it pretty quickly. And your numbers are showing up backwards a little, Mandi. So
I'm sorry, and I don't know why. Okay, so I gotta interject here. They've changed up the YouTube and the streamy thing, so I was like, what's happening? So I think I just forgot to do my mirror. So I'll remember for next time. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Oh God, we were talking about stickering the boards. And we reset to basic. Yeah. You will adjust the cards a little bit, and as you go, you basically earn an ability card that will go in, and that can change throughout the game. So there's a little bit of tweaking, but yeah, it does reset. I think you'll find as you go, because of the speed and the pace of the play and the way you build up your deck pretty quickly, usually it doesn't matter too much. And ultimately, I assume they did that for balance and to ensure that as they had some control over the game rhythm in later games.
But you also wanted to come back to basic because remember, I don't want to give away too much, but there are some of your basic cards that get altered.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that some of your cards get stickered.
Yeah.
And I will say that hits on one of my, I wouldn't call it a criticism, but it's something I thought was interesting, is you will be stickering cards as you go to some degree.
Right.
And what I realized is that you're shuffling, especially when you shuffle a thin deck, you can't riffle shuffle and things. And we didn't sleeve. There's a lot of cards, folks.
Look.
But yeah, it's a lot of cards. We didn't sleeve, and we found that even if you are not trying to...
Yeah, the edges.
Doing this, you could feel the stickers on your fingertips.
It's true. I'm trying to see if I can find one here.
And it was usually, if you knew your card was stickered, you knew it was a better card.
Let me see.
So, for example, I'm going to show you a card that was stickered. Like, here's one right here.
Yeah.
The yellow emblem right there.
Okay. You can see it on the side.
Yeah. And if you position it too close to the edge, you can see it on the side.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it didn't bother us. Nobody in my group is cheating or anything like that.
Right.
It was just something we noticed. If you are a sleever, it would probably help mitigate that a little bit. But I'm not saying you should sleeve because that's a lot.
It's a lot. And then, it's a lot.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I will say that the stickered cards held up well. I riffle shuffle, so they held up well for me through that.
The writing on them was a problem for me.
The writing on them was only because we found, and here's a good example I'm going to show you. So one of the fun things is you get to write on cards too. So here's a character, the helpful NPC, and you get to name it, set its alignment, set its talent.
Yes.
All this other stuff. But as you can see, I think you can see.
Oh, yeah, it's adjusted now. Yeah, there you go.
There's thin lines and thicker lines. And because we had two different kinds of Sharpies. And certainly, sometimes the Sharpie, the slickness of the thing didn't help.
And the pens were sometimes, like, you could get it working, but then you really had to, like, crush into the card.
And pens are not provided. You need to provide your own permanent marker.
So we had a rough time just trying to find something to write on it. We finally got something to happen, but we ended up stickering some stuff and then writing it on the sticker. So.
Oh, got it. Yeah, we just figured out which pens worked best and kind of paid attention to that. So our helpful NPC is Francis Coldwater. They're lawful good. Their talent is watermelon seed spitting. Their personal item is a warm mug of hot chocolate. And their quote is, "I like turtles." And that's because at different times, different people got to add different elements to this card and just did whatever they wanted. And it was so much fun. Like, that's just super entertaining to do
yeah, you get
and
to be
get a
creative,
chance to do.
you know? So I think that's a good thing.
And keep in mind, none of that impacts gameplay. That's all just flavor. That's all just for kicks. Which is pretty cool. I thought it was cool and just added a lot of atmosphere and entertaining elements. All right, Mandi, you want to look at boards a little bit?
Yeah, so my boards, I apologize because I don't want to switch my thing midstream, but if there's any numbers, I'll get you to show them. But my board, it doesn't matter. You'll get to see the thing, so.
Right, and we're not here to truly spoil. Let's just give you a sense.
So there you go. I'm kind of keeping it a secret still because it's backwards.
You will sticker the heck out of the boards. And I mentioned this earlier in the stream, but the stickering is super duper fun. It takes time.
Yes.
It takes time. It's a little bit like, especially if you're at all selective about the preciseness of your placements.
But the stickers are actually easy enough to pull off and reset. We did it a few times.
That's upside down. All right, I'm going to turn it right side up.
Oh, wait, mine too.
You've got your Underworld, right?
Yeah, this is Underworld.
All right. Look, so Mandi, look at your top of the Underworld board.
Okay, hold on. Oh, goodness gracious, this is a long board. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so...
Mine's a little backwards, but you'll get the idea.
Right.
Let me see.
I'm just trying to figure out... Look, we have different locations here.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one thing that I love seeing is that our boards are different because our locations that we got... Okay, that one... Right?
But it looks...
So even though... Oh, these are the same.
Yeah. Oh, but that bottom... Well, yeah, it's just mirrored, so it is actually the same. Oh, but that
No, it's the very bottom. No, it's different.
Yeah, it's different. That bottom one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
So you can see that just between two games, those are definitely choices that we made during the game that led to different board layouts. At times, you're going to be able to add elements to different locations. So not only will you be adding locations to the board, but you can add different bonuses, and sometimes it's a choice, sometimes it's a consequence of an action that you've taken, which is pretty cool. And that nets out to different end game boards that are personalized to you, which I think is super duper cool.
And some of the space, like the stuff is familiar. Like this, it threw us off a few times because this would be equivalent to the crystal caves, which when you stomp on them, you can't go past them. Like if you have tons of movement, well, once you go there, you stop. So this always kind of threw us off a little bit. We had to forget, no, you can't move when you get there. And I like the jumping, this space here. So it's kind of like how you can come off the board. This allows you to kind of transport.
Yeah, the carriages that were there.
So that was cool.
Yeah, and so why don't we flip the other side since we've got the board up. We can flip and just show you this. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the different things in Clank. So one of the things on the overall board where you start is when you open this board, if you play this game, you'll see my board is packed.
Yeah, look.
But almost all this stuff at the bottom
all the way
are stickers.
Yeah.
When you open your own board, you're going to find out like there's spaces all the way here and they just kind of end 2/3 way down the board.
Right.
Because you're going to get to add to it. And when we realized that, it was so exciting. And we thought that was incredibly fun. And we were pretty thrilled that we got to sticker the board. And then I got all finicky about how the stickers got placed.
Yeah, because some of them weren't lining up. So it was like that one down at the bottom. Oh, it's driving me crazy just looking at it.
So there is now, Mandi, do you have this sticker right here in the center of the fold?
I do. And it did split
that was
a little bit.
One complaint I had is that the sticker crosses where the board splits.
Right there.
And so we had to that was one minor complaint I had.
And we heard it when we were playing. All of a sudden we heard, I'm like,
oh. But it's pretty cool to get to alter your board and you get to do so much of it. Now, at its heart, Clank Legacy is Clank. You are diving down, trying to get to treasures. The treasures or artifacts are more valuable the deeper you go, but then you have to get back safely in order to claim that treasure. There is a safety line, so if you manage to get back above the safety line, you will get to claim that treasure. There's an example Mandi told me about. So there is if you get to a space above this line on the board, you'll get to keep your treasure and score. But even if you die, if you get back to your headquarters, then you get like a 20-point mug of beer.
Yes.
Which is always nice. But if you die below here, you get 0 points.
We had a couple games like that.
In our game, everybody died below the line at least once.
Yes, same with us.
And what's interesting, at least I won't speak for my friends, but when I died below the line, one, it hurt. I was emotional about it because it stunk so much to die and lose all that work and lose those points. But I could trace it back to choices I made.
Right.
I even said during the game, I'm like, okay, I can get to safety, or there's this juicy thing over there that I want to explore, but it puts me at risk.
Right.
And sure enough, I ended up being 1 movement point short. And I died because the dragon bag drained. If the dragon bag had 1 more cube,
yes,
I would have survived. It was a painful way to die, but I can trace it back to my own choices, so...
Well, and there's also, I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but there are also other things that come into play where you're like, darn it, if those weren't in the bag, I might have survived. That happened to me.
Yeah. The white
cubes. Literally the white cubes. WG.
Exactly, white cubes, yeah. Now, so it's Clank, dive down, make noise, have to throw Clank into the thing. When the dragon attacks, you have to pull cubes out, and then you take damage, and you can die. That's very basic Clank, which makes it familiar, comfortable, and if you like Clank, then all those things stay in place.
Right.
But in Clank Legacy, they also have Patron Cards. So you're going to get a different patron each game, and I thought this was great.
Yeah, this is good.
And each patron is different. It's directly tied to the narrative, so it feels thematic. And each patron is going to have a different setup, an adjustment to your setup, a consequence when you hit this point, and a different end game thing that happens. So the patron alone adds variability between games, which I thought was a great little system. And then there are contracts. So again, this is very thematic, where you're doing this franchise thing. You're trying to become a successful operator for Acquisitions Incorporated, and you're opening up a business essentially, and you have to fulfill contracts. And those contracts really do impact your game because you can choose whether or not to complete them.
Absolutely.
And if you choose not to, well, then maybe, Mandi, if you complete it and I choose not to, and you get the good thing. But then there are contracts that if nobody completes them, bad stuff happens to everybody and it's awful.
Exactly. That's
yeah. You're going to learn about Dran Incorporated.
Yes, that's a thing.
Yeah. And it was interesting how you go in and you make some choices and you go, okay, well, we'll make this choice here.
Sure.
And then flash forward to the end of the game. It's like, well, if you did that thing, you get this really bad thing now. And you're like, no, if we had known.
Right.
So 2 things about that. One, thematically, it made sense. We never felt cheated by the game.
Right.
We didn't feel like those bad consequences came out of nowhere. They made sense thematically, and they were based off a choice we had made during the game. And 2, it changed how we would play future games once we understood where the consequences could lie. And that shifted as we went along. So when you talk about legacy games and how do you keep it from feeling repetitive, I think this is another thing the game did. It raised the stakes as you went, and it added new stakes as you went. And sometimes you just had to discover what those were organically. Whether you got lucky and you made a good choice and you avoided it, or whether you made an unlucky choice and you had to suffer the consequences.
And sometimes you still hit consequences with those lovely event cards. There are some that are lovely and great and give you wonderful things, and then you see one come out and we're all like cringing. We're like, okay, what does it do? Everybody lose, put more Clank in. I mean, there was a game where I think I had like 15 Clank in there. I'm like, I'm gonna die. And then I have an event card that comes out and goes, hey, add some more. And that event card came out because of a decision I had made at some point in the game, and it had to be added to the deck. So it was like, oh, frustration.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it can follow you. Bad decisions can be really bad, but you're also getting the consequences together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beyond that, I think the patron cards, the fact that you get to sticker everything,
Patron.
You're supposed to tear up a lot of stuff. which I did, my group did. We have this little picture of a pile of card corpses.
Mine's under the board. Under the box.
Oh my gosh, you're such a cheater. And there were multiple moments in this game that we all just went, what? Oh my gosh! And they were genuine surprises and genuine delights. Right. And something would happen and we would have to stop and talk about it because it was just so stunning and interesting and fun that we had to like emotionally process it as we were playing. And I think it's impressive that a game can give you that and sustain that positive energy and emotional reward system throughout multiple games where you're essentially playing the same game.
And here's the thing, we want to continue playing it. Like, there's a little pack that you could get called Acquisitions Incorporated that if you just had the Clank, original Clank, you could use it and it kind of gives you the feeling of the characters because it has the same characters and some other scenarios that you can add to the game. I haven't played it yet, but I was told that you could use that same little box and play it with this once you completed it and it gives it more. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the thing. I'm going to try it out and see, but like my group's like, yeah, like they're so into it because usually with a legacy game, I don't play them often, but once it's done, I'm like, okay, it's done, right? And this is one that they actually want to pick up and continue playing. So we're going to try it out with this little box and see if it adds anything. But even if not, I still think they would play it.
Yeah. And that's a discussion we had is, one, I would play Clank Legacy again from scratch. Even knowing the story beats, I would play this again. That's how much fun I had start to end for this game. I would do it all over again. And hopefully I'd hit some different story points because there were ones that we didn't get to explore. But it was just so entertaining as we went. But one discussion we did have was, would we play our now completed game of Clank again? Mm-hmm. And could somebody else play our completed game of Clank?
Yeah, exactly.
So the answer to number one is yes. The group that we played with, we're like, we would play this game as pure Clank again. One person said, they don't ever want to play Clank again. They just want to play Clank Legacy. As far as handing this board and card set to somebody who is, let's say, familiar with Clank but hadn't gone through the campaign, you could do it. There's some stuff that you would have to explain. There's some elements and on the board that you would just have to explain what they do. And then I think you could. So I'm planning on testing it. So here's my plan, Mandi. I am going to test this theory, if nothing else, in February, which I know is months away. But I help host this little convention, local game con in my area. And I'm sure I can find a group to sit down with my copy of the game and play it and get their point of view on it. So that's my plan. If I can get it done sooner, I will. But my plan is to put my game of Clank Legacy finished in front of people who didn't play it and see what they think of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll add a little bit more to it. I mean, if they know nothing about it, right? It just adds more richness to a game that they didn't know anything about. So I think it still will go over. I think it still will go over really well. And you have the option of 2 boards, right?
You have the option of 2 boards. You have the option to switch out patron cards. So you can still, while the patron cards hit at narratively appropriate moments, their abilities are kind of agnostic. So I believe that, I'll double check them here before I speak out of turn. But I mean, Mandi, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I still have some in here, actually.
Yeah, you can look at these and you can play a game with these. Here's one. Yeah. Okay, so here's one that's very tied to story points. So Finnegan's very tied to story points.
Right.
But like Jim Dark Magic, you could play Jim Dark Magic with any game. So you could even just pick a patron and play out of the box Clank Legacy.
Yeah, Comfort Coaches is another one. It's just movement, really.
Exactly. So it changes one parameter of the game for you to play. So I would love to play this as just a pure game of Clank, just to see how it goes. I haven't done that yet. We kind of took a break. I mean, when you play,
Right.
10 games in a row.
Right. Did you do all 10? Like, we did like 3 a night every Tuesday night for a little bit. Is that kind of how you ran it?
We had actually hoped to do it in a weekend.
Right.
But because we had assumed the games would be shorter than they were, because the games ended up being a little longer than we anticipated, it took us 2.5 days.
Oh, okay, to do it.
So we did a Friday night, and then we did 2 Saturdays, and basically sat down and played. But I think we were a little slow, to be honest. I think that we took more time with it. I was finicky about stickering. We would have lunch and stuff like that. So I'm betting that our kind of average 90-minute to 120-minute play time was a little longer than it would be for others.
And how many players did you play with?
We played with 3.
So I actually started with 4. And I gave everybody the spiel, hey, you need to stick with this. I have to have it played in a certain amount of time, so you got to be dedicated. Unfortunately, something arose for one of our players, and he couldn't continue. So we actually just went down to 3 players for the remaining, I think it was the remaining 4 or 5 games. And it was fine. I was worried that it might change things a bit. It was actually fine. We just didn't play with that character.
I think that's a good point. It would be interesting to pass my completed game to strangers and say, okay, here's the basic rules, have at it, and see what they think. It is a game where I think somebody could pop in. So we started with 3. Let's say at game 6, somebody said, well, can I jump in for the rest? I think you could add them fairly easily, quite frankly. Sure. And what we did is we didn't play with the green player. What we did so that we could pass this game to somebody and let them try is we actually updated the unplayed green deck to kind of match where that if that player had been involved. So now it's kind of set for a 4-player game if need be. Amanda Panda says we should switch boards and see how that changes the game. That's a fascinating idea.
That is actually a really good idea. And then just do like a follow-up, like a post-briefing to be like, hey, your board sucks, or your board was awesome, or whatever. I mean, sorry.
You're mean.
I went to 2 extremes here of what I wanted to talk about, but yeah.
No, I think that's a fascinating idea.
It's a great idea.
I wonder how we could make that happen. But and certainly if anybody has any questions about Clank, be on for a couple more minutes. We kind of went through, Mandy, I think what we wanted to cover off on is sharing the fact that you got to do a lot. Some of the elements, I mean, is now when I get to point out that at the end of the game, you're going to earn, throughout the game, you're going to do things.
This was coming.
And you don't know whether it's going to help you win the game, but I won. For all of Clank Legacy, I was like Employee of the Month.
Show your stars. Why not? Show off your stars.
Here are my stars.
Unbelievable. Okay.
All those full stars. Just saying.
They give halves. So I have a 1.5. However, one of my friends just dominated. I
have 3.5.
But can I tell you, this player took a lot of Clank. Like a ton. And I was just too paranoid. I needed to get out and not die. So that goes to show you
what you'll see, and I think that's a great point. And one thing that I can point out is, I don't think this is too spoiler. So this is the sheet, the mission report you're going to get. And it has all 10 games, and you can see over here it says, like, it's blank, obviously, when you get it, but it shows you which board the game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. But you can see that you're tracking scores, but there's also the winner of the game and the associate spotlight are 2 different things. And we love that about the game. And it was interesting during the game how we would vie to win for sure. But all of a sudden, for some reason, we felt the associate spotlight was important. And you would make decisions about that. And then if something happened in the game and somebody got the associate spotlight, all of a sudden we were all really jealous and, I wanted to be the associate spotlight and things like that. And I love that. It gave you different things to work for. So even if you felt, there were games, even if you felt like I can't win this game, you could hit the associate spotlight, which still felt rewarding. And whether or not that paid off in the end, I won't say. It did. So I thought that was another quirky thing about it.
Yes.
Go. Neobari is asking, how much does winning each game impact final scoring versus, say, simply doing well and achieving goals? What I will say is, basically at the end of the game, and we didn't know this playing it, you're going to go through a checklist of things, and the rulebook will say, okay, whoever did this gets this star. Right. Whoever did this gets that star.
3 things or something, yeah.
No, there were like a lot of criteria.
I thought it was only
there
like
were
3
at least
or 4.
5.
Oh, see, I didn't think it was that many.
I think there was more.
Okay. Well, anyway, there was a list.
And I don't want to spoil it quite that much, quite frankly, but there were multiple things. So winning the game was definitely valuable, but it definitely wasn't the only value. And I believe you could win. You could lose multiple games and still technically win Clank Legacy.
So the person that had that blue box I was showing you, that's exactly what happened. They had more of that spotlight kind of area, I feel. They had more of that.
Yeah. And you can kind of see here that like the stars, we marked the stars were the winner of the game. So you can see winners are all over the board, and you can see associate spotlights all over the board. So it wasn't a game, and like I mentioned earlier, there was a game where every one of us, in different games, but every one of us died at least once.
Oh, for sure.
Under the line and hit 0, which sucked. Every one of us won at a couple of games. Every one of us was the associate spotlight. So fairly even spread. And maybe that was just our group, but I don't think anybody in our group ever felt out of it or disengaged or demotivated to play or complete the game for what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more questions for us? I know it's hard because you don't want to give away too much, but I know people are interested because I mean, the price point on this game, it's what, $100? So people are worried because they said, "Oh, I have Clank already. Why do I need this?" But it is a different experience because I have Clank in Space, I have the original Clank, and then I have this, and it is a different experience. Now, then comes the thing, like, would I keep both now and having both games? And I'm curious, and this comes back to you saying, let's try it with people who have never played it. And I'd like to see how that pans out, and then I can make that decision. But
right,
yeah,
maybe this is too much out of the box.
Exactly. So, but we don't know, right, until we give it a try. So.
Because this definitely offers other goals, other things that can smooth your game,
right?
Choices, other strategies that you can follow too. So, I'm looking forward to trying it that way. And quite frankly, I'm looking forward to revisiting this. I have emotions tied to board games. My board game collection will tell you that because I have a copy, Tigris and Euphrates. It's like 20 years old that I'll probably never play again, but I can't seem to get rid of it.
Can't leave it.
No, and this one is, I have emotions tied to this, and I'm looking forward to revisiting this world. Amanda Panda is asking if we've played other legacies and how does it compare?
Doing one right now. So I'm playing The King's Dilemma. We are, I think, 2 or 3 games shy of completion. I don't want to give away too much because it is something I've talked about on the podcast. May even talk about it here. Who knows? It's different. I definitely think that the tone of this went over better with my group. It fit that timeline, even though the other game has a very similar timeline, but the mechanics of this game, I feel, worked better. It drew us in. Even though the other game I'm playing has a story, that's kind of the only thing that's keeping us engaged.
You've also played Charterstone, haven't you?
Charterstone, and I'm going to say it, I actually enjoyed this more than Charterstone. I found Charterstone for me...
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I know, but I always feel like I'm comparing, and they're different games. But my feeling, so I'm talking about how I feel playing it, Charterstone got to the point where it got a little samey, and then I felt like, okay, I don't need to win. That's not even the point. But it got to the point where it was like the same person was winning all the time. And then the board just didn't feel like there was anything I needed to do. No decisions that felt important. Versus this one is like, yeah, I want to get there first. Or I want to get to that. Like, it was constantly keeping me engaged in this game. So far to date, I've played like Charterstone. I'm playing The King's Dilemma. I think those are actually really the only legacy games I've played. And so far, this one for me is at the top.
And I don't get to play a lot of legacy games. I am in a game. I'm like 7 games into Queensdale, The Rise of Queensdale, which I am really enjoying. but it's a completely different feel.
Right.
Queensdale is very Euro-y. It's very much a cube pusher. There's some story in it, but there's a little bit of humor, but it's certainly a punctuation, not consistent. Whereas with Clank Legacy, I was just amused the entire time. It's different in Rise of Queensdale. They just feel very different from that point of view. But I actually am really enjoying the Rise of Queensdale. And for what it's worth, my friends who played this with me, they are huge Pandemic Legacy fans. And there seemed to be a little tension there of, oh, is this as like, oh, this might be like Pandemic Legacy is so amazing. This one is really amazing too. And they didn't seem to be able to make that choice about which one, but they love Pandemic Legacy and they were also loving this.
Good to know.
And Neobari is also asking if we have the character expansion that works with Clank Legacy, and have you tried playing it with your finished copy? I do not have it.
So that's the one I was talking about. So that's the, it is actually also called Acquisitions Incorporated. And it comes in like a little box. Sorry, I didn't bring it with me. I just jumped off the train and came on here. It has the characters in it, like you were saying. That's the next game. So we finish this. The next game we play of this will be with that little box to see, because apparently it does add to the experience. So I'm curious to see how it pans out. So,
yeah, and I'm chasing it down. At the next convention they're selling it at, I'm chasing that down because I would love to get more out of this game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only other question I want to answer, which came up in an email, not on this particular chat, but age appropriateness.
Okay.
This is, I think, completely appropriate for children. It's very much in that Acquisitions Incorporated setting, but and some jokes may just fly over younger kids' heads, but I don't remember hitting anything inappropriate, Mandy. No. Like there was no adult humor that might feel what? Oh, I don't want my child to see that. I mean, a lot of the humor's around corporate humor, jokes about corporate environment, hardy har har, that a 9-year-old would be like, I don't get it.
Right.
But there's nothing that I wouldn't. So if my 7-year-old was interested in playing, which he isn't, but if he was, I would let him play this without a problem.
Agreed. And it's funny, we commented on that when we were playing. I'm like, I don't feel like there's anything inappropriate in this game. A few laughs, exactly what you were saying, jokes that would definitely go over a child's head, but no bad innuendos or anything like that. So
Exactly. Yeah. It's all very, very clean, very light. It's offbeat, and the humor's hilarious. We were really enjoying reading all the story points and all the card flavor text and things like that. It was just entertaining.
Exactly. Lovely.
Alrighty, folks. So there you have it. Clank Legacy, Acquisitions Incorporated. Sounds like it's a big thumbs up from both of us. If you are watching this, thank you. I understand if people don't want to watch this, quite frankly, because
it's giving away a few, not everything. And let's be clear, there's still a ton of stuff that we haven't even talked about, but we wanted to give you a feel of the game. So if you still want to play it, there's still more to surprise you.
100%. But thank you so much for joining us. We hope this is helpful. If you have other questions about Clank Legacy or about any games that we may be playing, you're always welcome to email us. You can contact me at Suzanne@dicetower.com.
And you can contact me. It's Mandi. That's Mandi with an I at dicetower.com.
We hope that this spoilerific look at Clank Legacy helped you understand the game a little bit more. And we hope that if you get to play it, you enjoy it as much as we have. And if there's any games that you would enjoy a deep dive like this again from us, let us know too. Send us a message and we'll see what we can arrange. But until next time, thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon, hopefully.
Yes, see you soon. Bye.